It's the Rachel Lang Show, and I'm back. After a few weeks of deep engagement in public service and in that aspect of my life, I am back. And so I want to thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening, for watching, and thank you for being the light that you are in the world at a time when the world needs your light more than ever in our lifetimes. I want to thank you for listening, for taking the time to be a part of this movement that we're creating. Isn't it awesome? Isn't it amazing? And you were born for this moment. This is a rare moment in history where you are rallying all of your energetic resources, all of your personal power, your charisma, your heart, your energy, your passion. You're rallying all of that to help be one of the people who is leading the charge into the next paradigm, the new earth. This is all happening right now. And I'm recording this the day before Saturn enters Aries. And so this is top of my mind. Today, we're going to be talking about Saturn and Aries. We're going to talk about what it means for all of us collectively and what it means for you in your sign. And so I'm fired up today, if you can't tell. And I'm going to share some of that fire with you. Today is a part fire starter, motivational pep talk session. It's part astrology and part how do you make the most of this time and how do you prepare for what's coming in 2026. And then it's also part personal. Where is Saturn going to be in your chart? How is it affecting you? And how will these transits relate to the changes that you're seeing in your life right now? So that's our topic for the day. We can't talk about Saturn and Aries without having in the back of our mind that Saturn and Neptune are meeting up at 0 degrees Aries in February of 2026. Now, this is something we've talked about before on the show, but I just wanted to bring it back into this conversation today because Saturn's entry into Aries right now, it starts on May 24th and it goes until September 1st. And it's just a little preview of what we're going to see from February 13th of 2026 until April of 2028. That's how long this Saturn transit is going to last. And that Saturn-Neptune transit that happens February 20th is one of the pivotal transits of the 2020s and maybe even of our lifetime, because that 0 degree point of Aries is the first point of the Zodiac, and it's a point where all possibilities exist. And so if you're thinking about this from the perspective of quantum physics or law of attraction, this is a time where the seeds of anything that you want to create in your life or in the world can be planted. It's a time for new beginnings. And this is something that we want to remember as we move forward through 2025 and through 2026, because you have a lot more personal agency than probably we've had in our lifetimes, in terms of consciousness, in terms of how our thoughts create our realities. There's this nice open window right now when all possibilities are culminating and anything can happen. And so this is such an important time for you who have been hanging out, waiting for your opportunity to step into purpose, to step into leadership, to do something that takes a lot of bold action, that takes courage. It's a time when you want to be looking at those practical action steps that can help you to fulfill your dreams. And I say this because Saturn represents what is on terra firma, what's grounded, what we're stabilizing. It's what we're building structures around. And Neptune is the dream. And so when you have these two planets coming together, first of all, sometimes it can pop the bubble of any bubble of illusion or delusion that you've been buying into. It can show the cracks in the foundation of some of the ideas, dreams, goals, priorities that you've had that don't have lasting influence. And so sometimes these transits can come with some disappointment, with some fear, or with even things that are shaken up in the environment. I think we'll see this perhaps with weather events. I think we could see this with seismic activity. I think the fires that we had in the Carolinas and the floods and the tornadoes and the hurricanes, and we've had experiences of real losses throughout the world. One of the things that we've seen with Neptune in Pisces and Saturn in Pisces is that the stable structures that we thought were there aren't as stable as we thought they were. And so when they both move into Aries, it's a time when we stand up and we say, oh yeah, no, this isn't going to work. And there are big, huge holes in real reasoning here. And it's a time when we can recreate some of those structures. Saturn has a 29-year cycle. And so Saturn's making its way to the first degree of the zodiac for the first time in 29 years. And it sets out a whole new cycle for all of us. Saturn's not the most comfortable in Aries. It likes to be in the opposite sign, Libra, more. That's where it's exalted. And so Saturn acts a little bit rebellious when it's in this sign, which means that a lot of the things that we come to rely on in terms of our schools, our institutions, our governments, even corporations, family systems, that a lot of those might go a little haywire over the next couple of years. But this is your opportunity to step up and say, let's try something different. Let's do it a new way. And it's also an opportunity for people who traditionally haven't had access to being in positions of authority or to power or to wealth, where they can come out of hiding and say, okay, here I am, put me to work. But let's get back to what this means for us in our everyday lives. Saturn in Aries, it's not just about waiting for an invitation or for someone to come and bring you an opportunity. It's about creating it for yourself. And so if you've been holding back on starting something, a podcast, a documentary, a book, going out for a new job, starting a business, starting a family, if you have been holding out, waiting for the right moment and all the signs to converge, this is your sign right here. You're listening to it. Do it. Because again, everything is at a starting point. And so if you're going to be taking a risk and doing something that requires a lot of bold action and courage, then you want to do it when this moment is ripe for planting seeds. Saturn is the planet of discipline. And Aries is the sign of action. And so what we have with Saturn and Aries is we have disciplined action. We have a step-by-step methodical approach where we can see really clearly what isn't going to work. But reality ultimately is, I think, liberating, because when we realize what can happen and what is going to be a waste of our energy, then we invest everything that we have, our heart, our mind, our finances, and our energy into that thing that can manifest, that can come to fruition. And so Saturn requires our dedication. It requires our commitment. This is especially true if you have any major cardinal sign placements. So that's Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, because you're going to feel the pinch the most. And you're going to have to make some perhaps tough decisions on what you choose to invest in. And you're going to have to make perhaps some tough decisions over the next 2.5 years, deciding what is going to last and what is going to be steadfast and what might be more of a dream and less of a point of purpose. Saturn in Aries is a time of entrepreneurs, indie artists, activists, self-starters. It's the energy of I am. It's raw, it's instinctual, it's unfiltered identity. And when Saturn joins the Aries party, it says, hey, what are you going to do with that inner fire? What are you going to do with that passion? Can you channel it in a way that is going to start a movement or going to contribute to a movement that's already started? We're going to see a surge of independent creators. we're going to see whole new business models being developed and more people building things from the ground up without gatekeepers, without asking for permission. And yes, there is going to be more accountability in leadership. One thing about Saturn is our regulations, it's our laws, and it's also how we enforce those laws. And so Saturn puts some parameters around things that relate to Aries. So that is war and war crimes, access to guns, military activities, military personnel, sharp objects, knives, surgery, surgeons, anything involving the head, including plastic surgery, including injectables, fillers, men's health, men's sexuality, reproduction, and reproductive technologies. And these are all areas where we're going to see some guardrails being put in place legislatively. Globally, we're talking about, not just here in the US. And it's also where we're going to see a lot of the trouble spots in those areas raising to our attention so that we can address them and put regulations in place. There have been lawsuits about deformities as a result of multiple filler injections that don't dissolve in the body the way physicians thought they would. We've also seen things like plastic surgery goes wrong, botched, those shows. These are all inspiring the movement that's going to come. But we're also going to see new technologies emerge throughout this time. And Neptune in Aries is going to help with this as well. Saturn in Aries is going to show us a whole new archetype of leadership. And this is one thing I'm personally excited about because I think it means more leaders like me, more people who are willing to say, you know what, I don't have a traditional path. It wouldn't have even crossed my mind to run because I am so different from the mainstream. And at the same time, we've had Marianne Williamson, who's really been a trailblazer in this movement. And she has really built a platform for those of us who are coming from the spiritual worlds that we're coming from that are more non-traditional. And we now have more of an acceptance within places that we didn't have before. We're already seeing individuals in positions of authority incorporating things like astrology, like human design, being willing to tap into their own intuition, their own psychic abilities. We're seeing some of these things that have been considered pseudoscience or not serious or just wrong. We're seeing them move into places, boardrooms, conference rooms, and even some of the government meetings that I've witnessed. We're seeing them make their way into places where decisions are being made. This is something we saw the last time Neptune was in Aries, and this was in the 1800s. And coming out of the spiritualist movement, which started with Neptune in Pisces and got a little bit into smoke and mirrors, magic kind of stuff. And Neptune in Aries brought a lot of the people from the fringes, Quakers, suffragettes, abolitionists, brought them from the fringes into positions of authority in mainstream sectors. And there were even pamphlets that came out in association with the abolition movement that included astrology. And astrology was in newspapers for the first time. This is in the 1800s. There were ads for astrologers. There were transits and full moons in major publications. Do you remember the Blair Witch Project? This was a filmmaking team with their camcorder putting all of the entire film budget on a credit card, and it rose into popularity during Saturn in Aries. So we'll see new platforms for indie voices, musicians, artists, performers, writers who've always existed on the margins. Now there's a pathway for them to come in. And I really think that a lot of this is building on some of the strikes we had in Hollywood and also the rise of AI, which democratizes things like production, storyboarding, animation, writing. It gives individuals access to tools that they would otherwise have to budget for in a production budget or go out and fundraise for. I want to take you back in time to the 1990s and the 1960s, the last two times Saturn was in Aries. And I want to just pull in some news stories and revisit some historical events so that you can see where I'm coming from when I'm forecasting what this next cycle is going to look like. The last time Saturn was in Aries, Viagra was introduced. And so here you have a revolution in male sexual health. We might see this time the launch of male contraceptions, fresh conversations about gender, sex, identity, landmark movements in trans healthcare, and even the sex toy industry, I think, could get a Saturnian wake-up call of sorts. If there are widespread issues or defects in production, we could definitely see some guardrails and stricter regulations and oversight in those areas. But like all things with Saturn, sometimes we see the pendulum swing from really restrictive and repressive to more open, and then they meet in the middle. And so these are all things that will be in process over the next couple of years. I think we're going to see a lot happening with different ways of wearing our hair, a lot of dramatic makeup that accentuates different facial features. I think this could be a return of Gothic, warrior-inspired fashion and style and beauty, where people are making bold statements. So think Lady Gaga at the Golden Globes. We're going to see perhaps even like armor aesthetics. We're already seeing here where I live, people are already wearing weighted vests that kind of look like bulletproof vests. And I tell you, I have one. So I'm one of these people, but this is something that we could see more of. You saw some of this in the 60s. Saturn was in Aries from 1967 to 1969. And this was a time when there was a lot of anti-war demonstrations. You had a lot of cultural upheaval, the assassinations of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and President Kennedy. And it was one of those times when so many were opposed to the war that anything involving war was being criticized. And then in the 1990s, we had the grunge movement. I know I was into the whole goth thing for a while with the dark makeup, real dramatic clothes. And so there again is somewhat of a replication of that last cycle. And that was a time too when there were anti-war movements happening, peace movements. My hope is that this is going to open up for movements that are effective at bringing peaceful solutions to the parts of the world that have been affected by war. I'm going to make one more prediction, and that is I think there's going to be a lot of research about testosterone, hormones in general, androgens, hair loss, men's health, women's health, or anyone who's non-binary or along that gender continuum. I think there's going to be a lot of research about hormones. And so we could see new ways of delivering testosterone, new therapies for men and testosterone. Now let's talk about how Saturn and Aries will affect each zodiac sign. And Aries, we're going to start with you. This is your time. It is your reset. Saturn's entrance into your sign is like a cosmic spotlight on who you are becoming. You are learning what it means to be your own authority, to lead within, and to build something real from your rawest instincts. So there's going to be some pressure, but it's sacred pressure. It's shaping you, molding you into a more defined version of yourself. So take responsibility for your vision, own your power, and also Saturn transits can coincide with some growing pains, and sometimes they play out physically. So if you notice anything going on with your hair, your teeth, your skin, your joints and bones, those are all Saturn-related body parts. So just be extra cautious and take preventative action if you notice anything going on. Also, you might need more rest. And that's because there's so much that's happening beneath the surface that your DNA is having to keep up with all of the radical change. Taurus, you are entering a quiet, behind the scenes kind of chapter where your inner world becomes your greatest teacher. And Saturn in Aries is a time when you're pulled inward. You're looking at karmic patterns. You're exploring the invisible aspects of your growing up, your childhood, your karma that influence who you are today. So it's a time when a lot of truth comes to the surface about family matters, about things that you didn't even have any awareness in, things that your parents were going through when they were raising you, or things like subconscious drivers that are now showing themselves to you. It's a great time to be building your intuition, studying psychic mediumship, to be doing anything that helps you bridge the physical and the spiritual world. You might not feel as practical as usual, and that's okay. You're getting in touch with your sacred calling. You might find that you're spending time with a loved one who is in the hospital or visiting a friend in a rehab center or in the hospital. And so just create some extra spaciousness in your schedule and in your idea of what you want the year to look like. Just keep some open time and space in case something like that happens. This is a deeply spiritual time for you. Gemini, there's a lot of pressure on your social life. 1, to define who you want to be spending time with. 2, to define the groups that you want to affiliate with, your political leanings and involvement. It's a weeding out of the people in your life who are depleting, the relationships that really weigh you down or that just aren't evolving at the speed that you're evolving. And you're being asked to be more intentional about who you're spending time with, and do those people align with your values? Do they boost you up? Do they provide a positive energy for you so that they're feeding your dreams and encouraging you on? There also might be helpful people, benefactors who are coming into your life to help you make one of your dreams come true. So just be open to all of the angels who are around you. Technology is also going to play a big role in your life over the next couple of years. And so you might do something like start a website or build an app or do something innovative with AI. These are all possibilities for you as you move through this time. I think a lucky time for you too, because Uranus is going to be entering your sign and there's a lot happening. It might not feel really stable, but you've got to find your stability in the mix of it all. Cancer. This is a career-defining moment. And I have to say, all of the cardinal signs, Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, for all of us, Saturn is like being in a pressure cooker. But the good news is that after a Saturn transit, you usually have the gifts that come with standing firm, staying on course, and continuing to move through dedication. And so this is your pep talk for the next couple of years. Stay the course. Keep going. Don't give up. You could be asked to step up into the spotlight in some way or gain recognition for something that you are accomplishing. You could also be asked to take more responsibility. And just make sure that if you are given a promotion or a raise, that you really ask for what you feel is right, what you deserve, because Saturn can put a lot of pressure on us and we can feel like a little bit of a trial by fire. And it can be one of those times for you in particular where you feel under-resourced. So just make sure that you are advocating for yourself and don't be afraid to really stand firm in that process and advocating for yourself. You also might notice that there are some issues that arise with one of your parents or early caregivers where you're having to go back home and lend a hand. So balancing the obligations between your professional life and your personal life, it's just going to be one of those balancing acts that you're doing over the next couple of years. And there's a lot of looking back for you about how your childhood experience shaped your professional identity and your sense of what you should be doing to contribute in the world and how you live your professional life. Anything that you do socially, the volunteer work that you do, however you make your contribution. Leo, I'm smiling because this is a time when there's a fire underneath you and you've got motivation. And so it's a time to stay committed to anything that you are building, creating. It's such a time, deep focus. And there's likely to be one project or one relationship that takes your focus and that gets your attention. This is a time of getting serious, getting focused, finishing your book, finishing your movie, going out on auditions, making sure that your home renovation is taken care of. Anything that helps you to be a brighter light in the world. That's what you're being called to do right now. And so this could mean that you are publishing, teaching, stepping into a spiritual role. It could mean that your own beliefs are getting a makeover. And there's a lot of personal transformation that's happening for you. Virgo, this transit brings you deep into your soul work. It's a transit of healing psychological baggage from the past. It's a time of getting really serious about eliminating debt, doing insurance, like doing some of the unsexy stuff in life to ensure that your financial stability is solid over time. And your main task throughout this Saturn cycle is to feed your enthusiasm for what you're creating and the financial goals that you're meeting, to get passionate about building wealth for your life and your future and future generations. It's also a time when you could be aware of the losses that you've had. So doing some grief therapy, doing some healing, things like that would be a wonderful, welcome opportunity at this time. It's a time too when your partner's income or your business partnership could be going through a transformational period. And so you could see some nuances in finances. And what I find with Saturn in this position, usually it's the 8th house. If you have a Virgo rising, this also applies to you. Whether it's your solar house or your natal house, when Saturn is moving through the 8th house, that is a time of getting serious, getting focused, and cutting back extra expenses and being dedicated to financial goals. And usually what happens on the other side of that transit is that you look back and you say, wow, I have financial freedom now that I didn't have before. This transit comes with some great opportunities for building long-term wealth. Investment properties, bond and stock markets, looking at ETFs, looking at increasing your dividend stocks. These are the kinds of things that you could be looking forward to over the next few years. Libra, okay, let's go. So relationships are going to be a big focus for you. And it's a time of solidifying your desires and goals in a relationship. And so at the first part of this transit, which means from now until September, and then a little bit into 2026, February to April, you're probably going to go through a relationship review, an audit of your current relationship, and an assessment of what's working and what's not working. And you just might need more time and space alone. And if you're single, you're likely to be doing this with past relationships, looking back with a microscope, saying what worked, what didn't work, what do I want moving forward. And so it can be somewhat of a lonely time. It can be a time when you feel like there are opposing forces that you're pushing against, or that there are people who are coming out of the woodwork who are expressing that they don't like you. You could be aware of some of the people in your life who don't have your best interest at heart, or who maybe are talking about you behind your back. Some of these could come into your awareness, and you're learning what it means to commit to yourself first. And boundaries. Boundaries are one of those very big lessons for all of us Libras. So it gives you a lot of clarity right now about who belongs in your life, who doesn't, what commitments to keep and which ones to discard. And so when you get to the other side of this, you are likely going to have a deeper ability to love yourself, love others, and to be more love in the world. Scorpio, Saturn in Aries is an interesting one because this one can show you anything that needs slight tweaking in your physical body and your health and your daily routine. It's a time of refining. It's a time of strengthening yourself. And I would encourage you to get into some kind of weight training, resistance type of program where you're building muscles, where you're strengthening yourself. I also encourage you to do something that prioritizes your health, that supports your overall well-being, to create more balance in your life. You also might have some issues that come up with your employees or your colleagues or coworkers, just little adjustments to put into balance. Certain boundaries that you have with how much work you're willing to do versus how much you're compensated for. Learning that busyness is not one of those admirable traits, that actually being effective, being the one who shows up and gets hyper-focused. You're learning that busyness isn't an admirable personality trait. And so finding more balance too, just with what you commit to, and be willing to cut away anything that feels like it's a drag on your resources. This is also one of those times in the Saturn cycle where you're putting in a lot of groundwork. You're laying down foundations for future success. Now, you might not feel accomplished, like you are achieving the success that you have set in your mind that you want to achieve. Don't worry, that is coming. Anything that you're doing right now has staying power, so keep going with it. This is one of those Saturn transits that could just feel thankless. It can feel like, does anybody see me? Does anybody know what I'm doing? And I would say that yes, they do. And yes, there is recognition. Just hang in there with it and don't get discouraged. Sagittarius, you are being encouraged to take your creativity, your love, your joy, your playfulness, all to a whole nother level. Saturn in Aries asks you to turn your passions into a purpose. And maybe even to take one of those side hustles that you've been working on, one of those creative pursuits, and make it a business, structure it. It's also a time for romance, for deepening your relationship, for finding ways to bring more joy into your life. Saturn encourages you to nurture and parent your inner child like you would any one of your children. And this can be one of those times when relationships with your children are going through a growth edge, or maybe your children are going through a growth edge. And as a result, your relationship is changing. So boundaries in your relationship with your children might be one of those themes, either because you're enforcing their boundaries. No, you can't have a smartphone yet, or you have a curfew that you have to keep, or that you're reserving more time and space for yourself. What you're doing right now is that you are building the life of your dreams. And Neptune and Aries, Saturn and Aries both inspire that fire. So keep your eye focused on what that dream looks like, on that target that you're aiming for, and keep going in that direction. Capricorn, this is a time of building a foundation for yourself in your home, in your family, in all areas of your life. And as a result of that, you're going to look at all of the support systems in your life, friends, family member, community, work, and you're going to say, is this working for me? Do I feel supported? And if not, then it's time to prune back. And so you have some difficult decisions to make this year. There could actually be a real estate purchase or something that you're doing with property, either a renovation or a rebuild or buying a home. And that's likely going to take a lot of your focus. So don't put too much pressure on yourself to have all areas of your life perfectly set in place. If this is a time when you're focused more on your personal life and on building a family, building a home, then the career will come, and vice versa. What's amazing about this time is that you will leave this 2.5-year period feeling deeply resourced because you have built a home that's a sanctuary for all that you want to create in your life. You've worked through some challenging issues, or that you've gone back and healed some of the family dynamics from your childhood and family of origin. And so this is one of those times when you are deepening the roots that you've already set into place, redefining what family means to you. New people are going to come into your path, and you're creating a new sense of family in your life right now. Aquarius, in general, I'm excited about this whole time period for Aquarius. With Pluto in your sign, with Uranus moving into Gemini, with Saturn and Neptune in Aries, wow, what can't you accomplish? This is one of those times when you're much more focused about the offerings that you have to the world, the words that you're using when you're talking about something that you're passionate about, the technology that you're innovating. This is a game-changing time for you when everything comes into focus. Who am I in the world? What am I supposed to be? What is my calling, my mission? And how do I express that out in the way I communicate? This is a time to be using your voice, because we all need to hear what you have to say. You are a visionary, and you are leading the charge in so many different ways in your community and in your life. You could be rising into a leadership position in your local community, or getting involved in a commission or a board or your city council. And so there's a lot of that kind of evolution that's also supporting this bigger call that you're receiving right now to be a thought leader, to share your ideas with the world. So it's a very exciting time for you. Even though Saturn can pull the reins and put the guardrails up like we talked about. So great time for getting your message across in a big way. Finally, Pisces, this is one of those times when you're in a creative crunch, meaning that you have a lot of ideas and it's just a matter of implementing them, putting plans into place. Aries can be one of those signs for you where it's like you don't quite understand fire, you're water, you don't quite understand cardinal energy because you're mutable, but it's putting a fire underneath you to do things that otherwise you might have procrastinated or delayed. And so if you have any kind of setbacks, either in resources that you thought were going to be there, not being there, a client dropping out, extra expenses coming at the home, or just not as much engagement in your courses or your material, if any of that's happening, then use it as a gift from spirit, from the universe, to open up new streams of income, because that's one of the gifts that's coming for you at the end of this transit, is that in any kind of setback that you have, you'll have to hustle, you'll have to be creative. This is one of the most creative times for you. Saturn's just leaving your sign. So you've had 2.5 years of getting really focused about what you're offering to the world, about who you are and how others see you. And so now it's just a building upon all of that realization that you've had while Saturn's been in your sign. It's also a time to truly value yourself and all that you do for the people in your life and for the world. So self-love is your key word for this Saturn and Aries time. So there you go. You have just had a Saturn and Aries intensive, looking at this transit from all different facets. Today, your cosmic call to action is going to be to sit and journal and bring in your spirit guides, bring in your intuition, and identify 2 things that you would like to call into your life during this time. Thinking about what Saturn and Aries means for you and your sign, what are 2 things you would like to create? Saturn loves giving gifts. So what is that for you? What are the things that you want? And ask Saturn, invoke it. Invoke Saturn to help you make your dreams come true. I appreciate all of that, because the more we can get some of this out into the world, the more we continue to be the light that we want to see, and to let that light build so that we are cultivating a whole new paradigm together. And you're a part of that. I'm a part of that. And so I want to personally thank you for being here and being a part of this movement with me. Almost forgot to mention that I'm teaching an Intro to Astrology course at the Theosophical Society in America starting on June 4th. It's 4 Wednesdays, 4 weeks online, and it's going to cover all of the basics. So if you're brand new to astrology and you want to learn more, this is a great way to do it. We work with your chart, it's interactive, and you'll get some one-on-one attention as well. So join us there, theosophical.org, and I'll put the link in the show notes. So check it out. And I'm also teaching an astrocartography course starting in August, and that's going to be a 4-week course. So you don't need much astrology to know that, to do that one. Astrocartography is an important tool to have in your astrological toolbox. So join me for those classes, and you can take the basic one and then join me later for the astrocartography, and it's going to be great fun.